Welcome to Ohioans Against Extremism podcast.
Oh my God, that was beautiful.
I've been training for that my whole life.
No, I told Maria, like, okay, my only thing is, like, as she's giving her, like, spiel is, you know, when she introduces herself, like, I'll jump in, like, and I'm Lisa Johnson Brown, and that's the pop-in. I'm like, that's my only line, so, like, okay, cool. So as soon as she starts talking, she goes, yeah, I'm Maria, and this is Lisa. So I'm like, now what do I say?
And I was too far in by the time I was able to stop it.
She goes, I totally stole your line. Yes. And now I'm just standing up here now.
I was like, that's really my bad.
Yeah.
I did do that. It was really...
That's almost what that felt like.
Okay. I'm Maria Bruno.
I'm Ainslee Johnson Brown.
And this is the Ohioans Against Extremism podcast.
Episode...
I think 3.
Trace.
Yeah.
Season 2.
Mm-hmm.
Extremism is still roaring outside our doors.
Well, we just came back from winter break, and I don't know about you, but I'm still sleepy.
Winter was there. I don't know about a break.
Yeah. Well, right. So one of the things we'll talk about today is how our Christmas holiday was spent with the federal government. But,
welcome to Ohioans Against Extremism podcast.
Hurt the rest period. But before that happened, I made a ton of cookies with my family, and we made gingerbread. What?
Sorry, hurt the rest period. I see what you did. We'll talk about why that's a pun in a moment.
Hey.
But cookies, back to cookies. I got some cookies. They were delicious.
Yeah, you did get some cookies.
I did.
And this is like when I go through like a year's supply worth of butter in like 3 weeks because I'm just making mass amounts of gingerbread houses. We had 7 this year.
That's
so many
houses.
And I make them.
Do you?
I do. Anyway, back to our horrific agenda of news items. So, I mean, we know there's a lot going on nationally and internationally. We also know that's like what most of the media covers most of the time. Mm-hmm. So, you know, we are Ohio and we focus on a lot of state stuff. So we're kind of going to continue that and just focus on mostly topics related to our state today. So we want to acknowledge it's happening because it feels
crazy outside.
Shit is crazy outside, we know, and shit's crazy inside too, so we need to talk about that for a second.
Yeah. This is an inside the house conversation.
An inside the house conversation. Hey, Ohioans, listen up.
I have a whole like metaphor about, and it's of course it's based in constitutions. But it's about how like as states we're kind of like little HOAs, right? In the development, and so like we could worry about what's happening outside in general, or, you know, we could just focus on our association.
It's a very capitalism framework. I like it.
It's in me and I can't get it out.
Mine all come through sports metaphors pretty much all the time, so, which is fun, because I have to explain things to boys a lot.
Just profit and loss, risk and reward.
Yeah,
you know?
Your business school all the way. Okay, so first thing we're going to talk about is the fact that while we were all resting in Christmas, ICE announced that they were going to drop down in Columbus to start a 3-week intensive occupation of Columbus. And so we had to do some community response work for that and just kind of live with the fact that this keeps getting worse.
So community response work, right? I mean, I'm sure, you know, people have seen some of the responses, reactions, programming pop-ups that get advertised out into the community. What did the day that the ice rained down on Columbus, what did that day look like for you?
I was on my
at the door.
I was living on my phone is what the answer to that is. There are all these different nodes of like society. There are people that interact with each other in the world. There are the government, there's businesses, there's nonprofits, there's grassroots organizations, there's affinity groups, there's, you know, community clusters. There's all these different groups of people.
Then there are the lone wolf /
And then there are random people who just like care a lot.
People that are on the internet that are digging.
Yeah.
And they gather things. I thought about when you noted that they were supposed to be here for 3 weeks, right? Like we heard the rumblings, they were on the ground. And the first time I heard about or saw anything about like the timing of how long they were supposed to be here was on Threads. Someone noted that they checked that particular hotel and their reservations were booked for certain rooms through a certain period of time, and that's how they deduced how long ICE was supposed to be here. And it went from, we saw the community response go from like, oh, this is not just a 1 or 2 day operation to like, they plan to be here. They have to turn up. Yeah. And I thought that was, I mean, it sucks because like what the hell is happening? But for me, that felt like this little ecosystem that we are trying to, weave together it's working, right? So to get that type of information from the person that's just randomly going through hotel reservations because they're curious to how that can turn into something actionable in grassroots organizing, to see that in real time. I was pretty damn proud of Columbus.
Yeah,
I'm not gonna lie. I was pretty proud.
Same, and it was really a nice combination of people who had already thought about this a lot and people who just really care and are paying attention to the news and want to protect neighbors. I think it's a lesson in, I just described all those different types of groups, but like we talk about building community a lot, and I think that can turn into like a catchphrase more than, what we really mean. But when we say we're building a net, when we say we're building community, what we mean is like when these terrible things happen, you know who to ask for what, and you can get it quickly. And that is the cup of sugar at the door, or like how do I get a lawyer? And now, and it's just a million different small questions from different people to different people, and like cooperation essentially. And it's also like unhackable. Like you can't stop, when it's everyone doing a piece of it, it's really hard to undermine, because even if one person is kind of like taken out of the equation, that gap is immediately filled by those community circles that we've already built.
Yes.
And that's what resilience on the ground actually looks like. So like, when we're talking to your neighbors and we're talking about going to church stuff and whatever it might be, that was a great illustration of why that matters. And when it goes, when it does become life or death, when food delivery services become the only way a family can get groceries, but we already have the systems in place to do a food delivery system, it's a lot easier and we can do it a lot faster. And so I think that I don't want to jinx anything, but I do think our community knew what we were in for and has appropriately responded with a level of like practicality and empathy that I think is really helpful.
Yeah.
I'm proud of us.
I'm proud of us too.
Yeah. Yeah. So anyway, so technically they're still there, but they also, what they did is when they started to come in, they didn't, because Columbus was so prepared, they didn't get those like juicy, confrontational, clickbait stories that they wanted. Yeah. So what we saw was an immediate transition into a very, very heavily coordinated effort around Somali daycare centers to build off of a case in Minnesota that was very, it was everywhere in the media, and then they tried to find the same thing in Columbus, essentially. And it's been much more in Columbus, this opaque series of accusations based on a PDF that they saw in the Google map that they viewed, whatever. And now we have all of these like paid provocateurs, people that spend their day on Twitter getting people mad about stuff and taking things out of context and spreading rumors and all of that stuff. They're coming into Columbus and harassing Somali people. And so that's what we're dealing with now.
We are. One thing I will say, and I don't often have flowers for Governor DeWine. Not often. But I will say that I really respected his official response to this chaos and madness. For those of you who haven't seen what the governor had to say, he basically acknowledged that, obviously fraud can exist in any system, but then he literally walked through the ways that the state already functions to mitigate those risks. And so, it was very much not so much blowback response of like, it's all crazy, it's all made up, it's all, superficial, but more of, that's a valid concern. We've already thought of that. This is the state system that we have. So you don't need to, show up at that daycare, right?
Yeah.
Or that you suspect is not actually a daycare. And I think that a great example of that is something that he said in the press release was around a tip, an online tip that they got about suspected fraud. And it turned out that the photo that they were looking at of the facility was old and had changed over and actually had become a daycare. But the fact that he explained that there's a mechanism for tips. We did investigate it. These are all the things that we look for. And that particular instance was not something to worry about because of going back to the idea that here in Ohio, that is not a concern. Not because people were so much, so moral in Ohio or so, we're better than any other state, but because our government showed up to tell us how they govern and how they act to make sure that our dollars aren't wasted in that way. And so fighting extremism with transparency was not something that I had on my bingo card for Governor DeWine, but,
See, it was on my bingo card. And
really?
Yeah, he has been pretty consistent. I mean, he stood up for Haitian immigrants in the middle of the Springfield stuff. When Nazis started protesting, he came out and said Nazis are bad, which feels like a low bar, I understand, and also a low bar that a lot of our leadership did not meet. Yeah. And so I think he has really been willing to take his responsibility for all Ohioans seriously in a way that I really hope the next governor, whoever they might be, and that's our next topic, but I hope that they take that responsibility seriously too, because policy for policy, I don't agree with DeWine on much, truly. And I can appreciate someone who has a different understanding of what's best for Ohio policy-wise, but with the goal of what's best for Ohio, than I can some of this malicious bullshit that we otherwise deal with at the State House. Like, there really is a difference between a good faith Republican who's like just trying to, govern based on his values, and a hack who will say whatever gets him the most clicks on the internet and the most donations from billionaires. Like, those are, and again, DeWine was wrapped up in the HB6 scandal. It's not like he's got clean hands, but I also think that he's still willing to say Nazis are bad, and he's still willing to stand up for immigrants. And when the rest of their party is just not, I do want to give him credit for that.
So I've spent a little time just thinking about exactly what you said, DeWine, in the context of this landscape, how I feel personally, about what we need next. And this is what I've come up with, right? And I think that this, for me, is the calculus behind who runs the most effective campaign in Ohio in this governor's race. We know how all the different ways that the scales get tipped, so I can't say who, would win, but who would run the best campaign. I think that, or where I've found resolve with DeWine is understanding that his executive style is passive, right? Like, you have the option to be passive or aggressive, with the tools. And DeWine has really seemed to be the type of leader that is kind of hands off with the legislative process unless something is egregious, and then he steps in and is like, hey, I can't let that happen, or I can't in good conscience sign off on that. Whereas, I think that we need to know whether who occupies the seat next plans to continue down that path, and we can talk about what that looks like, or really use the weight of the check and balance of that office to have an equal voice, right? And what happens in that, being more aggressive with vetoes and, executive orders and things of that nature. And I say that because, yes, Ohio on the whole is right-leaning, but we also know that the way that our legislative maps have been drawn are disingenuous. And so in order to kind of rebalance how far the legislature the General Assembly has tipped the weights in their favor. I really think that we need a governor who is going to, in whatever their agenda is, because we can go through, everybody's, platforms, and a lot of the times the platforms align or completely misalign with, the rest of the landscape in Ohio. But the thing is, what tools are you willing to use to implement that policy? I think that the person who was willing to use the tools and use them consistently and constantly to push forward whatever they say their agenda is going to be who wins the hearts of Ohioans. Because I think that as many of us at least still have some level of respect for DeWine, and that he hasn't gone completely MAGA brain rot, wishes that he would exercise those powers more often than he does.
Well, and even saying that he does ever is honestly maybe giving him more credit than I would. Like, I feel like when I think about, like, for all the credit I'm willing to give him on not being openly racist, I'm absolutely not willing to give in terms of his ability to stand up for the rule of law. He knew the redistricting process was absolute bullshit, and then he was like, but I'm going to vote for the maps, and like, that we needed to reform the process. But like you said, you had mentioned in our end of the year posts, like, didn't do shit with that. Been crickets. I mean, he signed 293 after saying it was a bad idea. Like, it's just, he will literally say this is a bad idea and then do it, which I'm like, what? That's your whole job.
That's exactly what I mean, right? To say that something is a bad idea, but under the idea that the legislature is a more direct representation of the voters, in the weird world where that was true, right? It's like, I'm just here as a safeguard, right? And so I think we saw him step up, with the gender affirming care ban. And I mean, like I said, some of the most disgusting and egregious legislatures taken.
No, you're right.
To get him to wake up. But hey, that's a tool that is in the toolbox.
Right. Like, we've seen it work sometimes, occasionally. When exercise.
Right, like, you don't get like 3 of them, like the whole tournament and you're done. Like,
it's not timeouts.
You whip those shits out all the time. So it's like, who is willing to step in and stand in and use those things? Because otherwise, whoever's in the governor's seat is inconsequential, because what's happening in the state house is driving us into wherever not the place we don't want to be. And that is the edited version of the end of that rant.
Hell. She's talking about hell. Wait, let me break the fourth wall. She's talking about hell. That's
governors.
Perfect segue in our next topic, which is the 2026 ballot. We're going to talk a little bit.
Ohio.
Yeah. And one thing before we even talk about the specific people that's worth noting about something that's kind of different this year is that a lot of things have moved to the executive in terms of power, whether it's the Secretary of State's office or the governor's office. Specifically, I'm thinking most of education is now predominantly run and managed through the governor's office now that the Board of Education has essentially been dissolved and absorbed by the, Department of Education and Workforce, I think. So whoever's governor gets to decide who heads that up and gets to really shape what education in Ohio looks like, which is a really significant thing. Not to mention picks the director of health and, decides how we respond to our next pandemic. So, yeah. So I guess let's talk about who our options are.
All right. Well, speaking of segue, DeWine candidates, news that just dropped right before we hit record. We saw that DeWine has indeed endorsed Vivek for governor.
And Vivek has picked his lieutenant governor.
Yeah, well, they both have.
They both have now.
Well, let's take a step back. There are multiple people that are running for governor. Especially leading up to the primaries. So we've got...
And maybe just to even step back one more step, The process here is that we have primaries in May. And so in May, we will all, if you are a part of a party, which is something that you can identify with at the ballot, you can, I think they haven't changed that. I guess I should double check.
No, that's
you should be able to pull whatever ballot party you identify with and vote for those primary candidates. So you're going to hear about a lot of different people who are currently not actually running directly against each other. They are running in their party clusters. And then whoever wins those May primaries is going to run against each other. So I think we talked about this very briefly at some point, but like something to note too is how that changes political incentives in terms of like, if you have a primary challenger, you're trying to get your base like to love you the most. Right. And if you don't, you get to skip to trying to get swing voters. And so that leads to different political priorities, rhetoric, etc. So what do we got on the plate this year, Ainslee?
Well, so far announced, because there's still some time to throw hats in the races. So there may actually be additional candidates by the time this gets posted. But we've got Acton, who is she the only person?
I don't think she has a primary.
No primary.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk a little bit about where she comes from and how she got?
Amy Acton is the former director of health of Ohio, famously during COVID. During the whole Wine with DeWine era of our pandemic, she was a co-star of those press conferences. So much so that DeWine has come out and said, if you're unhappy with how COVID was handled, buck stops with me. These are my choices. She was, advised.
She was the medical advisor.
She was the medical advisor because she's a doctor.
Yeah.
And I think most people who put public health considerations first consider her having done a pretty good job. I think she's been public about sort of her progression. She ended up leaving partway through, and that when she left seemed to heavily correlate with when she was no longer able to actually forward health best practices. She essentially was asked to uphold, some very politically based public health measures that weren't really based in science, and she wasn't willing to do that, which I respect.
This is the thing I think is interesting, and that should be considered in the equation for people that are considering who to vote for. Her role was very specific during the pandemic, and so in the universe with which she was responsible for, that's what she led with.
Yeah.
Who knows? If Amy would have been sitting in the governor's seat and been responsible for not just the public health component, but the other various factions and factors, how that would have manifested into our day-to-day lives. There's nothing that says that it would have happened the same way.
Right.
And so I think that as we are talking about or connecting Dr. Acton to the Ohio COVID response, which obviously she was the medical brain behind the science behind why are we
and was right. There's all this there's all these claims that she was not proven right, but she was. And that's a whole nother side thing. But the main thing that I think I want to note about that is that, compared to her primary opponent, or predominant opponent, not primary opponent, Vivek, who has never held a government position. And then you have Amy Acton, who has literally navigated a executive agency during a crisis in Ohio. The experience gap, to me, is so wide between those two candidates.
That is why, that's why Vivek's choice for lieutenant governor absolutely terrifies me.
So Rob McCauley, who is the current Senate president, was just chosen as Vivek's lieutenant governor. Continue.
So this was just announced less than 24 hours ago. This was announced 24 hours within when Governor DeWine gave his endorsement, which we said was just an hour or so ago. Rob McCauley is an effective legislator.
Yes.
And going back to the conversation that we were just having about what type of governor is going to sit in that seat, I think that it is very clear that Vivek is going to be of the more aggressive persuasion, inserting himself in places that normally are
got no business being, yeah.
But because those tools are there, he's going to use them. And then the question becomes, okay, well, there's the check and balance of the legislature, right?
Well, Supreme Court.
Well, we'll get to that in a moment. But when we talk about the legislature, well, here's someone who knows how to command this group, knows how to incentivize, knows how to negotiate, knows how to do the dance, even in this wildly chaotic, toxic environment, has managed to, even being in the leadership position that he's in this General Assembly, I haven't heard his name connected to too much filth that is like filth specific, other than like, hey, what is your party doing, right? But I say that to say, thinking about the type of politician that he has been in the State House, and that type of knowledge and experience being the battery in the back of what is supposed to be a check and balance, under the control of somebody like Vivek, is absolutely terrifying to me. So that's my knee-jerk reaction.
And keep in mind, he was about to pick Josh Mandel, who's like the polar opposite of this.
Because they're going off name recognition, right? Like, that was a name that, like, we just knew it for terrible things. But if you're going into the idea of, all engagement is good engagement, all views are good views, then that's a name that's going to get you some clicks, right?
Whereas Macaulay, I have labeled him boring evil. That's what I'm calling him, is he's boring evil. Like, whatever chaotic good is, he's boring evil. And I just, like, he is surgical in how he's able to do stuff. He knows, he's smart. I'm not going to say that he's dumb. I also think I've never seen him prioritize anything but his donors, the special interest groups that have his ears, and the people who bought him. I mean, he is a bought and paid for deal maker.
Yeah.
And he's great at it.
Yeah.
And I think the fact that, and then we have like the billionaire swindler, puppeting him around. That's a really scary vision.
Okay.
And I think that's,
like, to be clear, I think Vivek is a joke as a governor candidate, right? But when I think about, all of his showmanship, all the things that he has that plays well in this political environment, plus, such a tactician like Macaulay.
And he's not, to be clear, there's not a single ounce of populism in Macaulay. Like, he is through and through he's a corporate hack. Like, again,
he's good at doing
well executing
but
a corporate hack. So anyway, but those are not the only two names on the ballot, are they, Ainslee?
No, first of all, there's another recognized party in Ohio, minority party, the Libertarian Party. They are running, 2 candidates so far have announced under that banner. And then there is an independent candidate who technically she is a Republican, but she says that there's no room for her in that party on that slate. And so she is running independently. And those are what, the 6? Because Vivek is getting challenged.
Yeah, but
we didn't even talk about that.
He has a primary challenger who is well, he's a populist, but he's the white populist type that has made his whole thing pretty much well, it's interesting. He's got some opinions on like data centers and stuff that I actually share as far as, the exploitation that is associated with it. But then they like curb right into, and this is why it's immigrants' fault. It's like, okay, wait, I'm out, but
they want you to know that they don't want to do bad things.
Yeah.
So they palm blame off on the bad point.
Well, and they also they're like, no, I want me and my people to do well, not your people. Like, they're so like me, but not you. And it's a zero-sum game. Yeah. And I just don't believe that. That's a different...
I'm really interested for a couple of reasons. One, Vivek also just announced, I think yesterday, that he is, at least temporarily, not personally on social media. His campaign pages are up, but he himself has gone dark. That was not an intended pun. But the reason that he cited was the uptick in racist rhetoric.
Oh my God, right? It's so bad.
So, but think about what we just described, this dynamic that's playing out here in Ohio. Okay, we have the endorsed person that has, all of the political chips stacked in their favor, but obviously this very big, huge, glaring, typically red flag for the red side. And so the person that is challenging him is exactly not that. But nothing, I can't say nothing else because I don't know this man personally, but
I think that's right.
The amount of political capital is nil leading up to this announcement, right? But if I were of the faction that, this is my set of beliefs, I feel like certain people should be in certain positions and certain people should represent me, I would be eyeing this primary challenger just simply because...
100%. I mean, at some point, it's just about dividing it. Well, and I think I remember when they endorsed Vivek so far ahead of time, I was like, I think they have massively underestimated the resentment within their party's base. Like, whether it's racial resentment or economic resentment, they're both like that man is their worst enemy. And it has manifested exactly as I thought it would. Mm-hmm. And now we have this other guy that's going to take advantage of that failure of them to recognize and or just prevent their base from the level of racial resentment that they now live with. I mean, we've got a couple influencers on Elon's website that are straight up Hitler Youth. Like, Hitler Youth. I mean, what they're saying could be plug and play, what they said back then. And I'm like, oh my God, and this kid's 21. Like, what the hell is going on? So it's like, I can appreciate when DeWine and others actually bother to call it out. Like, and Vivek, he had an op-ed where he was like, racism is bad. Now, is he only saying that because he's leopard eating face? Yes, 100%. He did not care at all when it was other minorities that were, on the receiving end of it.
Well,
but at least he's saying it.
But the psychology of a person that typically takes Vivek's stance on these things, until it is them, they allow themselves to believe that it is all fictional because, well, it hadn't stopped him from becoming a billionaire. It hadn't stopped him from all the things. And now here's something that he feels like he's qualified for, right? Well, that whether he uses it is up for debate, but now that is a talking point. And he's like, whoa, this has never happened to me before. Racism is a bad thing. And it's like, it wasn't just an excuse for everything else. Now, it troubles me a little bit, given how unqualified I feel like this man is talking about racism is bad, because racism is bad, but you are also not. You are also
a billionaire swindler, and you are also not qualified for this job in this instance.
Well, I mean, and even Ohio for Ohioans, right? And so, I read DeWine's endorsement statement. I went through it with a fine-tooth comb, and I'll have a couple of things to say about it. One, DeWine was very clear, and I wrote this down, that he was supporting the dynamic ticket that was led by Vivek. He's not necessarily standing behind Vivek himself, but also on the heels of this lieutenant governor pick, this dynamic ticket. Well, he can get behind that, right? Go ahead.
I was going to say, I also have to believe that maybe this endorsement would not have come in the way that it did if it was Mandel. Like, it feels like Macaulay was like, that was the deal.
No, they had to be.
Yeah.
I mean, the timing of these things was just a little too tight. But also for all the reasons that we've talked about and what is percolating with the bots and their rhetoric, and now we've got this challenger that is washed white of all of Vivek's sins. It had to be now, because if anything else picks up too much steam because of the fact that nobody wants this guy. And I say, also reading the press release, the commentary was, Vivek, when Vivek talks to Ohioans, when he talks to us, because he's not here. He's not in community with Ohioans. He's not having dinner with Ohioans. He has to go out and be like, you know what? I talked to some people from Ohio today, and you know what they told me? And it's just like, It would be the most beautiful satirical play if it wasn't our real life.
It's also funny because in some ways it's like, all right, maybe you are built for politics, because that's what a lot of people in politics do, is they like drop down for a week and they go, well, now I understand what's happening better than you do, person who has a focus group every time you go to the grocery store. Like, I talked to 7 people for 3 hours in a temperature controlled room, and you know what they said to me? And it's like, okay.
It continues to show the disconnect between big picture federal governance versus state governance, and why there's such a disconnect, because the understanding and the respect for the nuances of what state politics, what it takes, what it requires, how to move the needle, even how to get a read on what's happening. If you're not steeped in that environment, if you're not there, if you don't live there, if you're not from there or of there, you have to go and talk to 7 people instead of, this is
living within. Yeah. Well, and I totally just forgot my train of thought. No, it wasn't your fault. It's mine, but I'm just trying to stall until I think of it.
So that's some time for announcing candidates.
There's still some time. Yeah.
Their party candidate, February 4th. They're independent. They can declare the day before the primaries.
Yeah, but it's like declaring means that like you filed and collected signatures. So like we don't want to say like it's not a Michael Scott declare bankruptcy thing where you can just like go in a room and yell you declare candidacy. Like there is a couple steps you got to do before you are declared.
They're trying to muddy up what that process is, but there is
a process, and anyone can follow it. You don't need any special privileges
or permission.
If you're running for office, you can still do it. And in this post, I'll link to the website where you can find more information. So
okay, that's cool.
Yeah.
What else is new?
I really wish I could remember what I was going to say before.
It'll come back.
Maybe.
It always does.
So State House.
Yeah.
So we talked about the governor's race. And we're actually not going to spend that much time on the State House, because the thing is they're still out right now. And
baby's still napping.
Yeah, baby's still napping, so we're not going to disturb it. Long and short of it is we have our ohiobills.wtf website that you can look at all of the bills that we are monitoring right now. Those bills will be back on the table when they come back. When they come back is always a guesstimation, because you'll hear rumors and then you'll see the schedule and those will not look the same. And then there's also the fact that they can change their mind at any time. So we think it could be as early as late January that they start having committee hearings in session. It also could be later into February, because people are doing campaign things probably. But during campaign season, I feel like the legislative season's lighter because they're all just trying to run their primaries.
Yeah, they're all just trying to stay in office.
Yeah.
I have actually enjoyed this break because it's given us an opportunity to take a step back and look at more of the puzzle pieces and more of a macro context. And I say one of the things that when we do launch, because we're launching a new tracker, right? We have incorporated a number of social issues that we weren't necessarily tracking explicitly before, and so we've increased the bill tracking to about. I think we just added about 200 bills, right? But I mean,
we mean Ainslee, to be clear. Ainsley's been really working hard on this.
Of the 900 plus at play, and there's still a whole year left, right? I am concerned, especially going back to some of the topics that we've talked about, like local enforcement of federal policies and some of the bills that in concert would require local police to essentially be additional headcount for these ICE squads that come in. And they have, it's not a local matter. They have no choice, even though the jurisdiction is, immigration is decisively in the Constitution a federal matter. There are, a handful of bills that, when taken together, not only increase the policing on that, but also increase the penalties for basically what we call protesting. And so I'm looking at those. I'm looking at the mix and match smattering of property tax bills, because my thing is, what if they all pass at the same time? Then what happens, right? Like, there's so many things that have been thrown against the wall that
and now like some of them are passed.
Well, some of them are passed,
and some of them are sitting there still.
But then what we've seen, and this goes back to looking at just all the bills in play in concert, is, and we saw this with the absentee ballot deadline. That bill was SB 293?
293, yeah. 293 was the voting one. I think that was the ballot.
Yeah.
There were several different voting ones.
So that's the thing. That was how it actually ended up passing. There were 3 bills that throughout the legislative process, they amended pieces and amended pieces. And so, there are things that are up on the board that are technically dead because they've been included in something that has passed. But if we looked at all of those things separately, it would seem like it would be a marginal impact versus...
And that's the game that they really play. And that's when we say someone like Macaulay is so dangerous, is because he knows how to layer bills on top of each other so that independently they sound reasonable. And in effect, they defund public education. Yeah. They might have one bill, for example, that says, you have to rely on local public levies more than state funding. And then you have another bill that says prohibits, raising local levies. And so independently, those are going to get talked about in certain ways and not necessarily grouped together. But if they're layered on top of each other, functionally, we have just defunded public education. Yeah. And so I feel like they are playing this game where they're pretending to play around the edges, but really they are just defunding entire systems.
What's interesting? So there's one last bit at play on the board for ballot laws. And so the thing that remains is the requirement of a copy of the person's ID, whatever would qualify for voting, a copy of that with their absentee ballot. And so to get over the cost barrier of making copies, the legislation would require any library to make these types of copies for free, right? Which sounds great until we think about what just happened with library funding at the top of this session.
Right.
And how that's only going to come back, because it's not like we are bringing in more dollars as a state, right? That conversation's still going to keep happening. And it's thinking about the deadline change and thinking about how processing stamps on mail ballots will happen going forward. All of those things in concert, and there's still, like I said, a few things at play. One of the things I want to focus on this upcoming year is talking about just kind of the totality of what's cooking, because one of the things that makes Ohio unique is that, our General Assembly has 2 years to make
Other states happen. Other states have a week. I need people to understand. Some people have 1 to 3 weeks of session, a year or every 2 years, and we have constant 2-year sessions.
It's perpetual, and it is partially how they just grind or have historically been just grinding us into submission, because, like I said, we're halfway through the legislative session and we already have 900 plus bills. We haven't even gotten to the hot season yet.
So they can do the 3-card Monty, and they can also spend 2 years. They can introduce a bill in January of 2025 and then get it over the finish line December 26th, and they have 2 years to just step by step get it over the process.
And let's not forget that anything introduced before May of this year, so we've still got 5 more months, is required to at least get one hearing, right? And so that's 900 plus. So there's at least 300 that are sitting there and have never even been given the very first, the legislator who is presenting it gets to give their spiel about why they think it's a good law. There's like 300 of those that are still waiting in the queue. And so I think that part of what we can expect in 2026, especially after coming back from primary season, and then especially in the lame duck season, is just like drilling. Yeah. That's fun.
That's fun. We also didn't talk about any of the other statewide races, I'm realizing now, which I feel like we should at least mention are happening.
Yeah,
we have talked on it longer than maybe, but the governor takes a lot of energy out of the room. We also have a Senate race this year. Sherrod's running again, so it also feels a little bit like there's not a ton to like. There's not a newcomer on the scene. This is just Sherrod versus Husted. So pick your card. But then we also have the Attorney General, the Secretary of State, Auditor, and Treasurer, and not to mention all of Congress and that. But those are really powerful agencies and institutions on their own, and I think they don't get a lot of attention, but they impact a lot. So we'll talk more about that when it gets closer to those races actually kind of needing to reach a decision. But it's worth noting you've got more candidates to research than just the governor.
Yeah. That's because of how our Constitution's set up.
That's because of how our Constitution
decentralize the executive power, but we'll get into that another day.
Oh, you tease. So lastly, I want to talk about what we've got going on in 26. So honestly, it would take a long time for us to go through all of the things that we're doing. But a couple that are like newer things that we really just wanted to give a preview of are some of the things we're doing to try to mobilize people a little bit more long term. We are not one of those groups that like clings to one issue and just like drives it into the ground. We watch a lot of different issues.
We're mad about it all.
We're mad about it all, a little bit, all the time. That's our style. Yeah. But we also know that that's a place where like a lot of other Ohioans are. Yeah. And so when you're just kind of like pissed about it all, you don't necessarily know what to do with your hands. You don't necessarily know what it looks like when you are getting more involved, but like you're ready to go. You haven't found your place in the advocacy ecosystem yet, but you'd like to. Yeah. Or if you have a pet project that you just feel like you could really use some more support for, there's a lot of folks that, have independently become researchers on some niche topic that like, man, it would be really nice if other people, were following along with this work and things like that. So if you just heard us explain this, or heard me explain this type of people and you're like, wait, that kind of sounds like you're talking about me. Well, boy, do I have news for you. So we are starting a helpers cohort, and the goal is to help folks get integrated into the advocacy ecosystem by providing a support space and a training space and a facilitation space to help people essentially learn what they're good at, get better at stuff that's important to the movement, and find their place in advocacy. This is not something that we expect people to join and continuously be a member of for 2 years. This is something that's like meant to be a launching pad to your next more long-term project. But we want to help you get there. So if you are looking for more support on a specific thing that you're already working on, or if you just want to plug in but don't know where, apply for our helpers cohort. We will be introducing that soon. We'll link an interest form in this post, but
there will be more. The interest form already?
I'm going to make it. It takes it's not that long.
Oh, okay.
Yes, it's done and ready.
Starting the year
but more information is coming soon, but I'm really excited about it, and I think it's going to be cool. And I've talked to a handful of people that kind of fall in this category, and they're pumped about it. So, yeah. And I know you're kind of working on something cool too.
Well, normally this is the part of the segment where we say, if you buy Maria and I a cup of coffee, consider donating to OAE on a monthly basis. $5 a month, that's a cup of coffee. And then I thought, one, as we are continuously motivating other people and finding ways ourselves to get back outside, what if we actually had some coffee with people?
I love that.
Especially because Ohio has so many great independent coffee shops. I actually ran a little thing on Instagram a few weeks ago and just asked people what their favorite independent coffee shops were, just to get some ideas of like some of the options. So many cute ones, so many. So we're going to do that for the first time, Coffee with Us. It'll be at the end of March. Think sassy group chat without the memes, but you can make faces. And no, like one of the things I'm trying to find a space for is this energy to discuss things that I'm increasingly frustrated with outside of just the people that I talk to for work, right? Because after a while, we kind of all get in an echo chamber.
Right.
And sometimes, I'll talk to my mom about, her perspective or her understanding. And it literally gives me, like, completely different insight. I would like more of that, but I want to be with our people. So if you're our people, and that's literally if you listen to this and don't wish us harm.
Which is not everyone that listens to this.
It has to be both. Come on and have coffee with us. We're going to do this probably 3 or 4 times this year. The first one will be in Columbus at the end of March when we announce that what's going to be in the greater Columbus area. We're still locking down the venue. But I want to travel a little bit. There's a little cute little shop in Toledo that I want to go to. Yeah. So, and also, if you have a coffee shop and you would like to host a coffee with us, which is literally just, we're going to announce that we'll be there and people can buy their own coffee. So if that's
try not to get overwhelmed by the planning involved.
If that's something that you'd be interested in, shoot us an email and I'm sure the QR code is going to pop up right there. Or info@ohagainstextremism.org will always get to us. But yeah, looking to go out and, enjoy a little bit of the Ohio-ness of it all.
What's nice about this too is like, you don't have to invite us. You can do this on your own. If you want to do this in your own community and not go to one of our special ones where we're there bitching, you can do that at any time.
So I cheated when I put this together, right? So there is this wonderful toolkit that's come out in the past month or so called Seasonal Connections that is put out by the Ohio Equal Rights Group. And it literally has a worksheet that I went through that really helped me intentionally think about what I wanted to come of this, other than like hang and have some coffee, right? But like, what do I want it to feel like? What are some intentional touches that we can put in there to make it feel more like it's an OAE thing. And so I would say that if you were thinking about putting together some sort of, gathering amongst friends, and you don't want to do it as a part of us, it's fine. I would definitely recommend leveraging that toolkit. I used it. It's great. It's robust. You don't need to have ever had experience planning an event before, and everything you need is right there to be successful. So I just wanted to shout out, because it's always good when there's another org or another group that puts something into the atmosphere that you can just take and run with instead of reinventing the wheel. And a lot of the things that I thought about, I realized I wouldn't have had that thought until 2 hours before the event. So yeah, just save yourself the heartache and headache, and use the Seasonal Connections toolkit.
And also, like, I feel like people get really overwhelmed with the prospect of planning any type of event. And, like, it doesn't have to be like your wedding, you guys. Like, it literally can just be show up here.
That was my wedding.
That's true.
I threw out a text.
It can also be how you do your wedding. But, like,
pop out.
Like, don't overthink it. Most people don't care about most of the details that you're probably stressing yourself out on. They just want to know when to show up, what to expect. And so, everyone needs to spend a little bit of time in 2026 getting out of their show.
Yep. So come have coffee
Myself
with us.
included.
Or hot chocolate or tea. Or whatever your beverage of choice is. Mm-hmm. Cold water. Lemonade.
I will maybe judge you if you go to a coffee shop and get cold water. Just cold water.
That's another topic for another time.
I know. Coffee's so good.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
Coffee and water.
Unless it's because it's expensive. Because coffee shop coffee is steep. I understand that.
Which is why we should patronize and support our independent local coffee shops.
Especially with tariffs.
And, that some of the big corporate guys don't pay a fair wage. So Yeah, we're just in it for the cause. Coffee for the cause.
We started buying a giant bag every time we go to Costco, whether we need it or not, because it was always more expensive every time.
You're hoarding. You're hoarding coffee.
No, we actually go through it very fast. But I have like a bag and a half. That's but I'm also not going to Costco like 4 times a week.
I think I know you have like a doomsday shelter full of like.
Wouldn't put myself past it, but I do not have one. So one day maybe. What I really want is one of those gardens, like vertical gardens. I don't know if you've ever seen those. They're super cool. They're like these little tower things, and you can do a bunch of produce in them, and they're very space efficient. They use them in space, I think.
I've seen a space-like contraption that does what you described.
I went to the Home and Garden Fair, and they had a whole presentation, and it was awesome.
I'm going to leave that right there.
I digress.
Get outside, whatever that may be for you.
Yeah. Okay, well, I think that's all we got.
Yeah.
When I ask people for money, you're better at it than I am.
Well, I just asked them.
You did.
So come have coffee with become a monthly donor and come have coffee with us, both. Yeah. But also just come have coffee with us.
And literally just like a couple bucks a month is really helpful. It stabilizes our funding stream. Like I think that's what I am trying to express to people. It's like just similar to building a community, strengthens the whole community. Like relying on small dollar contributions has allowed us to really be, a stable presence in Ohio advocacy. And that every $5 we get from people really does make a difference in making that happen.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks. Bye.
Well, thank you for listening to Ohioans Against Extremism podcast. If you want more, you can check us out at ohagainstextremism.org. Follow us on Twitter, No Extremism Ohio. And stay tuned, subscribe, and feel free to donate if your pockets allow it.